React 19 is a release candidate and will soon be the major version of React. React 19 comes with many cool improvements and updates that will generally help us to create better applications with React. And in this video, I'll be going through these new features and updates that comes with React 19. The first feature that we will look at is the form actions. React have added support for passing functions as the action. So generally, if you have a form element like this, you can pass an action attribute and you can now pass a function which will handle the form submit. And when the form action succeeds, React will automatically reset the form for uncontrolled components. So these will automatically submit the form with this action. In that action, that is where you can perform an async call to the database to submit the data. In React 19, we have some new hooks, and the first one that we'll take a look at is the useTransition hook. And this useTransition hook is used to automatically keep track of the isPendingState. So this is how you would use the useTransition hook. First of all, you call it like this, useTransition. Then it will give you back two things, the isPendingState and this particular function that will start the transition. And then right here, you can see we have a handle submit function. And what we are doing, we are calling the start transition function. And in here, we are passing our async function that will handle the async call and so on. So once we do this, useTransition will automatically mark isPending as true before making this async call. And once the async call is done, this isPending will automatically be turned to false. So we don't have to keep track manually of the isPendingState by making use of the useState hook like we were usually doing before. And for that manual, tracking of state is just above right here. So this is how we were doing it before. We create a useState hook with the isPending and set isPending function to update that particular isPending. And then before making the async call, we manually set isPending to true. And once the call is done, we manually set the isPending to false. So we no longer need to do this. We just call start transition and we pass the call in there, and that will automatically keep track of the isPendingState. In React 19, we have another hook called the useActionState. This hook allows us to automatically keep track of the return value, the error, and also the isPendingState. And this is how we could make use of the useActionState hook. This useActionState hook accepts an async function, and this async function is basically the action, and then it will return a wrapped function which we can call. And if you check at the bottom here, we have our form element and we have this action attribute, and we are able to pass this function that was returned from useAction. And by just doing that, we are able to get back the errors and the isPendingState. So it allows us to automatically keep track of this error and also the isPendingState. It gives us a function which we can call in our form action just like this. Another new hook that comes with React 19 is the useFormStatus. useFormStatus reads the status of the parent form as if the form was a context provider. So what this hook helps us to do is to get the status of the form without drilling props down to the component. For example, if we had a button like this one and the parent of this button is the form, we can call this useFormStatus, and this will give us the status of the parent form, whether it's pending or not, and then we can make use of that pending state in this particular button. and we don't have to pass that particular form state via props. And I believe this would apply in any other component that is a child of the form. For example, the input fields. Another new hook in React 19 is the useOptimistic hook. Now, this useOptimistic hook is used to automatically update the UI while data is being submitted. So this generally makes our React application to feel faster, okay? So when submitting the data, we will set the optimistic state and that will automatically show on our UI. And once the data completes the update to our database, then the updated name will now show on the UI. Generally, it's the same name because we already know what we are submitting. We immediately show it on the UI even before the update is complete. So useOptimistic hook was added in React 19 to make this easier to, work with. In React 19, we have a new API called use, and you can make use of use to read resources in a render. For example, you can read a promise with use, and this is the example right here. You import use from React, and then you just pass the promise to use. So we call use and we pass a promise like this, and we get back the data without doing the try and catch and awaiting this particular promise. And while this promise is pending, use will suspend it until the promise resolves. So what this means is that if you have a suspense boundary like this, and we are passing the comment, this comment component is this one right here, which have use. This use will suspend the promise, meaning that the component right here will not show until the promise resolves, and the fallback is the one that will be shown. So it will show the loading state, and once the promise resolves, then this component will show the comments. So we can easily make use of use to consume a promise. Another use case of use is to consume a context. So you can also read context with use, allowing you to read context conditionally, such as after array returns. Remember, the use context hook can't be used conditionally. It's a hook, but use is not necessarily a hook. It's an API, and that means that you can use it conditionally to read the context. So you can use it inside an if statement and everything will work okay. In React 19, server components and server actions are stable. And if you have been working with the Next.js, I know you have already maybe worked with server components and also server actions. So if you haven't, I recently created a full course on server actions. And server actions, these are functions that run on the server. They are async function which will be executed on the server, and these particular functions can be called on the client. So how you can call them on the client is either by importing them in a client component, or you can pass them via props from a server component to a client component via props, and then you call them on the client and then they will be executed on the server. So I recently created a full course on server actions, CRUD operations in Next.js and server actions. So I'll leave a link to it at the description section below so that you can check that one out. Another improvement that have been made in React 19 is that we can have ref as a prop. Starting in React 19, you can now access ref as a prop for function components. So before, we had to wrap the component with forward ref in order to access ref, but right now you'll no longer need to make use of forward ref. You'll just be able to access it just like this as a prop. Another cool feature that I found interesting in React 19 is the support for document metadata. And in React 19, you can now add the title, the link, the meta tag deep in a component tree, and React will automatically hoist those tags at the head section of the document. So this is really cool because sometimes you find that the title or the tag that you want to include in the document is deep down in the component tree, and now you don't need to depend on some global state or something like that. These will automatically be hoisted at the top of the document, and you can easily add those tags anywhere in the application. The last cool feature that I'll mention in React 19 is the new React compiler. And what does the compiler do? In order to optimize applications, React compiler automatically memoizes your code. So this will happen on the background. So this is not something that you'll have to do. It will just happen automatically. I know you are familiar with things like the use memo, use callback, or react.memo, which you manually use to optimize the application or to memoize the application. And now the good thing is that React compiler will automatically memoize the code for you, and you'll no longer need to make use of these hooks, use memo, use callback, or the react.memo. So you can now say goodbye to these hooks, use memo, use callback, and react.memo, which sometimes makes it hard to optimize an application because you might even forget that you are supposed to make use of them in order for your application to be well optimized. Now this will be done automatically, which is really cool. So with that, you can check on React 19 documentation, because there are other things that I haven't mentioned, like support for style sheet, support for script, better hydration error messages, and so on. But with this video, I have already mentioned some of the major updates that come with the React 19, and it's worth for you to learn and understand them because they'll help you to create better applications with ease. For example, you no longer need to make use of the use callback, use memo, because React compiler will automatically handle the memoization for you. And then we have new hooks like the useTransition, which makes easy to work with the pending state, and so much more. So if you like the video, please leave a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, you can check my other videos on React, Next.js, Node.js, and even HTML, CSS, and I'll see you in the next one.